Hello and welcome back. We've got a new-ish kind of bit of content for the channel here. It's not exactly new because it's we get a little ranting going on here. We've all got our opinions. We got an opinion corner going on over here. Where we just kind of let loose and have fun with it. It's gonna be a little different from the podcast episodes, but also not because we also do that there. But it's gonna be solely focused on just venting our opinions and just getting it out of our system. Cause it's good to talk, ain't that right, Skull?
Yeah,
Share what's on your mind and all that fun stuff. And what
yeah.
better way to start that than talking about how we feel and what our views are on shipping? And for the context for everyone who is listening, we are talking about when you are pairing two characters or more, always more, together in a sort of ship. Now, granted, there are many different versions of ships. There's, your canon ships, fan ships, crack ships, all that fun kind of stuff.
Crack
You
ships
know,
are fun.
what was that?
Crack ships are fun.
They're very fun. The shit that will never happen, but you want it to.
What is it? Fucking one that I've seen all over fucking Jelsa or whatever.
Oh, the jealous. Okay, I'm not gonna lie. I used to be a Jelsa person.
I don't know. I find it entertaining the fact that that fandom is its own thing. It's its own beast.
It is. I'm not gonna. Like I said, I was one of them when I was a fucking teenager. Ish, yeah, kind of that transition between teenager and adult kind of thing. But still, I was one of them. One of my friends is still one of them. But I digress. It's a very fun pastime. I'm not gonna lie. I am one of those that does enjoy shipping. Obviously, you only get that if you're gonna be part of any fandom. You're given these very engaging characters. You're gonna want to pair certain ones off together, or create your own little stories about two characters that would never meet in any circumstance, but you still want to see them together, kind of thing.
Uh,
You want to say something?
let's not talk about my obscene ships and just the list.
All
Because there's a
right.
lot.
Well, I will grant you this once that we won't talk about it for now. But that's the key word for now. But moving on from that. But yeah, shipping is fun. We all do it. We all are part of fandoms that either shipping is the main focus where everyone is shipped with each other, or you're just part of a general fandom that shipping isn't the big focus, but you still see it a lot because, again, it's the characters that what matter. And sometimes you think that perhaps two characters should be together more than the main goal, like the end game, essentially. But there's always problems when it comes to that kind of stuff. Don't you agree, Skull?
Yeah.
And I want to chalk this up to probably more childlike ignorance when I was, getting more into fandoms around, roughly like that transition phase between teenager and adult, so like 18 to 20.
Mm-hmm.
Mind you, I never really got into fandoms and shipping and that kind of stuff in my earlier years, like when I was still going to high school. Like, obviously, I still engaged to a smaller scale, but it wasn't like when I actually got out of high school and could freely engage with that kind of stuff.
Oh, I'm kind of the opposite, where I was like really just like full tell fucking fanfic, ship fic writer from middle school through high school. And closer to the end of high school is kind of when I started pulling away from all that because of how many shitty people there are in most fandom spaces now.
Well, the reason why
I
I
got
say
tired of
that
just
on my end.
gatekeeping everything.
Oh yeah. Well, the reason why I say that on my end is because one, I grew up in a little bit of more of a different time than you, Skull. Granted, it's not that big of a difference, mind you, because you're like what,
I'll be 20 this year.
20 this year. I'll be 27 this year. You're 7 years younger than me. Man, I feel old. But anyway, our the world is technically advancing a lot faster with all the technologies and shit like that. But still, when I was in high school versus when you were in high school are two different worlds. Still, even in this day, which I find hilarious. So while I myself did engage in shipping and fanfics and things like that, it was on a much smaller contained scale where I was kind of in my own little bubble. I didn't freely express it with the world until I got more to senior year of high school and moving on from there. It wasn't actually until I want to say Steven Universe, and that had its whole, swell, and then it petered out. That's probably the last time I actually got into fandoms and whatnot. So obviously until Hell of a Boss and Miraculous Ladybug, and that's a whole other beast entirely. But regardless of all that, the point being is we've engaged in our own form of shipping and things like that. We've all had our ships that we're probably not too proud of. Probably be what's the word I'm looking for? Admonished, probably in our current shipping culture. I guess I don't know what a good word for it is.
It's a shitstorm. It's an absolute dumpster fire.
That's true. It is a shitstorm. I'll give you that much. So this brings us ultimately to the biggest divide, probably in the whole shipping kerfuffle and all that fucking shit. Is just the fact that there is such a divide between pro shippers and anti shippers. And I know a lot of people probably are well aware of what these things are. But just for a quick summary to those who are not aware, that pro shippers are those that will I have no problem shipping anyone with anything in that regard.
No matter relations or pretty much anything. There's no rules with pro shippers.
Whereas then you have anti shippers where there are rules. Like you can't ship these two characters because of X reason.
Yeah.
And then you find that it's the anti shippers who are very vocal in terms of policing what people can ship or not.
They're very vocal and they're very, I don't know, I found a lot of antis are very intent on spreading misinformation about pro shippers or people who just kind of want to experiment with their writing, even. Be it because of trauma reasons or like whatever. There's a lot of very harsh accusations getting thrown around in the shipping communities in most fandoms nowadays.
So here's the thing that just kind of caught me. So you said one of the plausible reasons of many, because again, there's a lot of many different reasons for why they are as vocal as they are, is potentially trauma?
Yeah.
So could you elaborate on that a little more so I can understand?
Well, a lot of people, their reason for not wanting to see a lot of the pro ship content is because it's the problematic, abusive, there's, relationships that shouldn't happen, be it because characters are related in some way by blood, just so on and so forth. It's, and I can see both sides of this because, this triggers my previous trauma, but then I also see the opposite side where there are people on the pro shipping end of it where the reason why they use those mediums is because it's a way for them to work through their own traumas from the exact same things and cope with it. It gives them control over a bad situation.
But then it ultimately brings up the talk or debate, rather, of does the how is the best way to put it? Is the creator's intent, important? Does it actually matter when it's the person who is consuming the media that's going to interpret it their way? So even though the artist could be using it to work through their own trauma, another person who's consuming the media would not see it that way. They could see it as offensive because of the content, which is where things get extremely messy. Because again, we can't always judge what the creator's intent was. And even if they can say that's what the intent was, then we just get a whole lot of problems at that point.
Continuing from here, it's a lot of, the thing that I find frustrating about this entire fucking argument is the fact that if someone accidentally stumbles upon something that makes them upset, they go out of their way to harass the person who made it, and interacting with that content only brings you more of the same content that you don't want to see.
I see, that's something that's always bothered me.
The person, even.
I see, that's something that's always bothered me, is I was taught, but unsuccessfully at times, because of, you should know this, I have no fucking filter at this point. I was taught that if you do not have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all. And if you don't like something, just ignore it. Don't pay it any attention or anything like that. It's another reason why I have such issue with people ragging on the Velma show. Yes, I understand a lot of people don't like it and its humor and the fact that it's adapting Scooby-Doo characters in this way. However, if you do not like it, do not give it attention. Long term, all attention, good or bad, helps the artist. And I think that's what some things that people are forgetting about, is that if you don't like these ships, don't engage with them. Ignore them. Because the more you engage with them, the more you're going to see them. And that's obviously a lot of the problem.
Yeah.
Because if you're like, why do I still see this? It's because you're engaging with it. You're engaging the algorithm. It's like, oh, you like this, even though you don't. So it's going to keep showing you it, and then you're going to keep getting upset if you keep seeing it.
Yeah. Well, it's for that exact reason why I ended up on my Twitter account needing to block the official Genshin Impact account. oversaturation, kept seeing things I didn't want to see. At the end of the day, if you do keep ending up seeing things you don't want to see, even if you're not interacting with it, there's a reason why on most social media platforms you can block certain tags and why you can block or mute accounts.
Exactly.
It's a beautiful thing.
It is a beautiful thing. It's why I would probably put myself more in a middle ground here, because while I do believe everyone has the right to ship what they want, because there's so many different things. On one end, you said trauma, which I can see that, because you have people who have experienced this kind of trauma and they want to work through it. Because to be quite honest, talking may seem like a really good way to help, and it's what a lot of people say will help, is by just trying to work through that trauma by expressing it and talking with someone. However, that doesn't always work, and sometimes an artist actually has to display it. I know for myself, I didn't actually start getting over my trauma or being able to process it until I, one, was able to talk to someone who, you know, ended up being a douchebag in the end anyway, but that's aside the point. It was through writing I was actually able to express how I was feeling and able to get those feelings out. And yes, in the end, I did post my vent writings, essentially, because it's not vent art, it's vent writing, but regardless. I did post it, and I mean, it doesn't get much traction, which I don't care, but I want people to see this. I don't care how they perceive it, but it's just out there. And that's how some other artists feel as well, because, like, you may interpret it wrong. Not wrong, that's a bad way to put it. You may interpret it different than how the original artist did, but they want to share it because there are going to be people out there who feel the same way as you, that have experienced similar things, and they want to connect. That's ultimately what it is. They want to be a source of inspiration.
Yeah.
On one hand, like, if you don't like these things, don't engage with it. Don't give it any attention. Block it if you don't like it. Block the tags, the creator, whatever it may take. You don't have to announce that you're blocking them because you hate their art or hate what they ship and things like that. That's not necessary.
It's interaction like that that leads to, well, it fosters an environment of harassment. It encourages people, be it indirectly or directly, to go after these people who are just trying to share their art, share their writings that they're either trying to use to work through something or that they're just genuinely passionate about sharing.
Exactly. And again, that's where we get a lot of problem there, because I get it. Not everything should be shipped with something. Like, if you definitely don't want to see any kind of, like, sibling ships or father-daughter, mother-son kind of ships, or older women and younger men, or even the vice versa of that, or even if you don't want to even see queer, queer partnerings and things like that, that's perfectly fine. Everyone has a preference, and if you don't want to see everything, that's perfectly fine. If you don't support everything, that is fine too. Again, you don't always have to want to, say, like, oh, you can ship whatever you want. It doesn't matter. There are obviously some lines, but I wouldn't be someone who necessarily call myself an anti. Again, I say I would take more of a middle ground approach. I believe everyone has that right to ship what they want. But
everyone has the right to, like, ship or think whatever, but that doesn't always mean it's something that needs to be shared.
Exactly.
It doesn't need.
That's it. That's the thing. So that was actually what I was going to get into next. Just because you create art doesn't necessarily mean you should share it with everyone. Like, I get intent and you wanting to share it because for one reason or another, perhaps you're proud of it, perhaps you're proud of the pairing, or you feel validated because other people will ship it as well. Whatever the case is, because there's a lot of different reasons, I definitely would say it's I don't know. Some things are not meant to be shared.
Yeah.
Like, you have to know where the line is, and you have to be able to gauge your audience. Now, granted, things can still be seen outside your audience, but I would still say what matters most are the people you're I wouldn't say targeting, but, like, target audience, fuck it, is, like, what your target audience is. Who is it you're actually creating it for? You're not going to make everyone happy, but the people you should worry, not really worry, but, like, consider how they may react is your target audience.
Yeah.
Because, again, those are the people, like, obviously, like, as you grow in fame, and some people can get away with this a little bit more because as you grow, you get a bigger audience and things like that. So you're not going to make everyone happy the larger your audience is. But if you're, like, small scale, it's a little bit easier to manage.
Yeah.
But even then, like, you're still going to get some people who are just like, oh, this is bullshit, you should be shipping this, or, that kind of thing. Or just, people being stupid, essentially. At least what I call stupid.
Yeah. On the opposite end of the spectrum, though, you also shouldn't be going after people and harassing them just because they don't share the same ships as you. I've seen a couple times where, people who are pro-ship are going after antis just because they're not comfortable with certain ships. And that's equally as unacceptable.
I do definitely agree there. To add on top of that is how do we address this? So a lot of media, I've noticed that at least in my bubble of content I like to consume, is a lot of kids shows in quotes. I don't like to call them kids shows because they still offer those mature themes. Unless you're Miraculous Ladybug, then you are a kids show. But I digress. You still have people in those fandoms who will attack other people. And I do say attack because I mean this wholeheartedly. When they ship like two teenagers and draw them in more an SFW kind of situations and immediately assume that the person creating the art is an adult. And that's not always the case. You have to acknowledge who the audience is and who may be drawing the art, because that's a big thing, because you're going to have a lot of teenagers making this kind of shit.
Well, yeah.
But that's something we tend to forget. Like, I've seen so many stories about teenagers being attacked for shipping teenagers, saying you can't do that because of how old they are, and it's like, it's a minor drawing fan art of other minors.
Yeah.
Like, if it was like a little kid, like if they were drawing ship art of little kids, that'd be very weird. But if it's like teens drawing art of other teens, that's different. And I understand it's hard to tell at times, like, how old the people actually are because we don't know.
People can lie.
Exactly. People can lie very easily. However, we should not immediately assume someone's age, because that just creates a whole lot of problems. And that's also a lot of frustration, too. I mean, hell, this is completely off topic, but even when I'm fucking playing video games, I often get people assuming I'm like a 10-year-old little boy, and I'm like, motherfucker, I'm a 27-year-old woman. Like, that's just annoying as all hell. And I can only imagine how these teenagers must feel about getting attacked for shit that's not even their own damn fault. Because, like, they're just making art of other kids their age in media that they're seeing. And there's nothing wrong with that. And not to mention, so it's just like a whole thing. It's like, let them explore. If they decide to share it, then they decide to share it. That's on them. They will have to face the consequences of sharing whatever ship or art they made of that ship. However, you should not just immediately assume that it's an adult making this, because you never know. It could actually be a teenager making this. And to be honest, there are times you can tell it's a teenager.
Yeah.
There are certain ways people carry themselves that you get to feel like, you're a kid. Well, a kid to me, I'm obviously an adult at this point. Like, everyone's a child to me. But, like, you can tell. And even on DeviantArt for this entire month, basically, I've been drawing ship art requests for people, and I've been picking and choosing. And the people who come to me and share information about the ship so I can better draw them, I can get a feel through them how they create these ships and what kind of people they are. And I had one recently that was with some Miraculous OCs. It's not drawn it out yet, but just the way that they set up the ship, how the people met and everything. I'm just sitting here like, you're definitely a teenager. I can feel it. And if you're not, oh boy. Like, you can tell in a lot of cases. And on top of that, like, you can't also really judge on the art itself either, because everyone has a different style and level. I mean, look at me. I mean, Raptor. You want to hear what Raptor said? Okay, so listen. We were talking about art. I think we were just kind of chilling in the chat or something. I forget what we were doing. No, it was stream. It was the last stream. That's what it was. He told me, okay, I know this for a fact, but it's also because we got different art styles and different everything. But Kami, he told me that Kami is a way better artist than I am. And I'm like, Raptor, Kami is also a very different artist than I am. Like, the things that we make are extremely different. It's very, the boy is very talented for his age of, like, I don't even remember exactly. I just know he's young. But he is very talented for his age. And you think he was someone older just based off his talent, because what I've seen from him, I've seen from a lot of artists who are roughly my age, or at least a little bit younger. But then you look at my work and you'd think, I don't know, this bitch must be, like, a teenager or something. It's like, no, bitch. It's just what I draw. I don't draw all that fancy shit. I focus on character designs and nothing else.
Yeah.
Like, it's very different styles, different everything, and I can get lost in translation, I know, but still, it's very frustrating.
Even our L0tus is very different. I don't like comparing art and artists and saying this person's better or this person's better. Like, everyone has their own distinct style. And I feel, and I know this is off topic from what we were talking about, but, you know, making those comparisons and saying this person's better than that person, it just starts to, you know, create this environment where people end up, well, I've told you my story about how I almost quit drawing and why.
Right.
You know, when you've got young artists who are learning, and someone says, you know, your art's not good.
Or like, why can't you be more like this and do that instead?
Yeah.
It really does just create a whole lot of problems, which shouldn't be any surprise at this point in this society that we live in and our wonderful, wonderful culture. But still, we digress. Like, it's very frustrating to see these kind of arguments kind of break out, especially when it does lead to harassment in those regards. And it's very unnecessary. I will say that right now. And usually in the case, I feel like it's a lot of kids that end up getting harassed for what they draw, at least from a lot of the stories I hear, especially with the way that some of them react to. Like, you can also tell that too, is how some people react to certain criticisms can also reveal their age a little bit too, or their maturity level at least. Because
Yeah.
I can tell you, those younger kids cannot take criticism most of the time. I mean, a lot of
Yeah.
adults can't either, but just watch for the reaction. But again, like, I understand the need not to ship certain people because, like, again, I won't ever ship family members together, at least not in a romantic sense. Because again, shipping can be so much more than just romance.
Yeah.
And I think that's something people tend to lose in translation because of just the world we live in. Because slight tangent here. Romance and sex are fucking shoved down our fucking throats every fucking second. And it's annoying to all fucking hell. To just basically be told, like, oh, just expect this in our world. You're gonna fall in love. You're gonna have sex. It's gonna happen, whether you want it to or not. And it's like, bitch, no, it doesn't. And again, it's just those things that constantly get shoved down our throats that we kind of forget the other things. Love is not just romantic; it is also familiar, words, platonic, or whatever it is. There are many different forms of love. Love is love.
Yeah.
And I think that's where some people might get a little confused because usually when it comes to shipping, it's usually people as partners, like romantic partners or even sexual partners. Who fucking knows? We're not here to judge. But shipping can also be just like two people as siblings or family or things like that. Obviously, it's not going to necessarily be called a ship, but to a degree, it kind of is. I don't know. What do you think? I've ranted a lot.
I'm sorry, but you kind of lost me.
I had a feeling about that. Okay, well, you have your tangent now. I had mine. Oh no. Come on, Skull. I believe in you.
What?
Come on. I know you have strong opinions about this. Share them. Vent them out for the world to hear. Or at least like 5 people.
Oh my fucking god. I hate this entire argument. I can see both sides, and I also heavily disagree with both sides of this argument. I'm tired of the stupid accusations and misinformation being thrown around back and forth by both sides just to see who can scream louder. Everyone's subjective to their own opinions. It doesn't help when you've got certain groups of people from both sides of the argument who are also taking their time to go after people who, you know, they're genuinely neutral. They don't want to label themselves as pro or anti because they know it's going to cause problems. And it does. You shouldn't have to worry about going online to share any sort of art and have someone jump down your throat immediately. I have been banned from servers for shipping 2 characters that would have been the same age had one not died in their 20s. Ghost character, by the way. Straight up banned from servers.
Yeah, here we are, right?
People are infuriating.
That I can agree with. Like, I definitely feel like that's a very extreme response because again, like, and again, it falls into that whole like you really shouldn't be shipping a minor with an adult, which I do agree.
Well, yeah.
But then you also have some ends of the argument where people get really weirded out when it's people who are like both adults, but because of the age gap, it's really weird, which I find a little strange myself, just because time is relative, and once you hit that like I'd say about 20 years old, time loses all meaning. It really does once you've hit about 20, once you've been out of school long enough and like you're kind of on your own to start doing stuff. Like everything just flows together. You don't really have much of a concept of time. At least I don't. So just to hear things like Like, remember when it was brought up how Vanessa from Phineas and Ferb might be a groomer because she and Ferb end up in a relationship later down the line? That kind of stuff.
I hate the fact that with this argument, people are getting so out of touch with reality. Like, people are straight up losing touch with reality because of this argument.
To be fair, did they ever have any grip on reality in the first place?
I mean, at this point, these idiots are starting to act like they're fighting a war. And yes, I'm calling them idiots because the people who are causing this drama back and forth are being just flat out stupid. There's misinformation and everything. Yes, you have your own opinions. Yes, you disagree with people, but that does not mean you abandon respect. If there is something that you think is genuinely problematic to the point where it should not be online, there's something called the report button. You don't flood their comment sections and harass them. You don't go after them on either end. Sending death threats, doxing people is not okay.
That is never okay. It does not matter what context or whatever the case is, never resort to that.
Like, and at the end of the day, the internet is so wide that even if you try to, fight this war, in quotes, trying to get rid of all of the things that you think are problematic, it's not going to happen. There's enough people on the planet that are going to disagree with your ideals as it is. And a lot of people have access to the internet now. There's no way to completely erase everything that's problematic from the internet, even if it does seem like it would be a really good idea. But even then, there would still be people who go behind and, they make their own little circles to continue creating the content that people are fighting so damn hard to get rid of. It's stupid. It's just a waste of time and energy. And the amount of time that people spend fighting all these stupid Twitter flame wars or whatever, they could have just blocked the person, reported the content if it was bad enough, and moved on. There's no reason to be going around calling people predators and other horrible things. I have seen so much from both ends of this argument. It's stupid, I understand there are things people don't want to see. Some things shouldn't be posted on the internet, but at the same time, there's no reason to go around throwing out accusations of people being predators and stuff, If you're this passionate about stopping certain things from happening, maybe focus on it actually happening in the real world and advocating for the end of that as opposed to the internet.
See, that's definitely something that does kind of get to me when it comes to these kind of ships, is even I can understand those viewpoints when people engage with those kind of media, and everyone does have different points of view on certain things, but it's just like, come on, guys. Use our better judgment here. Look at the whole picture and not just like what reality is also making us. Because again, you see that too with a lot of fantasy ships too, Skull. Again, you're going to have mythical creatures that don't exactly, obviously, look their age, like they're eternally youthful, but they're mentally an adult. And I know some people can get really caught up on like, oh, but that's like pedo bait. And it's like, well, where's the line then? Because this is how the character was designed, and I can understand, like, you want them to look older for them to be shipped with someone who actually looks like a, what's the word I'm looking for? An adult, like a human adult. But again, like, that's the thing. It's human versus mythical creature. It's kind of like, so this would definitely get some people caught up on it. And I believe the book is called Fledgling. It's like a science fantasy book, and I'm not gonna lie, it kind of took me off guard for a moment, but the more I read it, I just kind of adjusted to it because it was the rules of the creatures and things like that. But this adult man had found what he believed to be a little girl, just kind of lost on her own, and decided like, hey, I'm just gonna help you, I'm gonna get you clothes, and then we're gonna take you down to the police station. But as she's starting to get her like bearings, because she doesn't remember who she is or what's going on, you begin to learn that she's not a child at all. She's actually a vampire. And she's very much an adult. It becomes very obvious when they have sex. And I'm just like, okay. It was very jarring to have the author describe the vampire essentially as what would be a child in our eyes. About, what was it, like 4'3", flat chest, all that kind of stuff. But that's just how the creatures were. These vampires in her story, all the women look the same height, like no like normal human kind of development, no breast or anything like that. This is just how they looked. It's how all of the women looked. And obviously they're vampires, so at some point they're gonna like have that kind of pause to their aging, at least physically. So like,
you want a book that's kind of along the same lines of like people would find it really fucked up or whatever. when I was in maybe 5th or 6th grade, we read a novel called Chuck Everlasting. And basically, this family, like they found this spring or whatever, and they've just stopped aging. They're hundreds of years older than they actually were. And I think it was like this young woman, I think she was no younger than 16, falls in love with one of these immortals who stopped aging around the same age.
Okay.
It's a really cute story, but when you think about it, it's just a little bit, to some people, it would be kind of messed up, because, you've had the extra hundreds of years of life experience or whatever. But it's fiction. It's got a fantasy type of, magic, whatever, and people are still gonna get into an argument over it.
And not gonna lie, it kind of reminds me of the whole thing with, Edward Collins and Bella Swan, how, she's 17 and he's 109.
Yeah.
It's that kind of thing. It's you don't find this weird at all? It's no, not at all. He's a vampire. He stopped aging at, what was it, 17? Was he 17 when he stopped aging?
I can't remember.
I can't either. I almost want to say 19, but I think it is 17. Because when she turns 18, she says that it's at least a year older than him. So I'm pretty sure he was turned when he was 17. I could be wrong, though. But no, it's essentially the same thing. It's it's different for a lot of people just because he looks like a normal human. Essentially, he looks like a human man.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's essentially what it is. So, yeah, no, it's woo boy. There's a lot of, how would you put it? Gray, probably?
What?
There's a lot of gray in this kind of discussion. Because, there's so much, was it, nuance?
Yeah.
Yeah, because,
that's one thing that I'm starting to see more and more, and I've had conversations with my roommate about this even. People are starting to have a harder and harder time understanding nuance.
Yes, they absolutely are. That is... And the problem is, there needs to be a lot of it, because, again, just look at what shipping has done. Again, you can't tell what the intentions are of an artist. You can't tell how someone's going to react, or what feelings it might invoke in others, or what kind of harassment may come of it just because of the piece itself. People will just jump to the first conclusion and not stop to think. They don't consider more, almost.
Yeah.
Which is definitely something we do need to, practice more. It's come on. I'd like to imagine as humans we are smarter than this. But
there's a reason why we've evolved to be more intelligent. Stop acting like y'all have monkey brains.
I mean, to be fair. Some days, though, right, Skull?
Some days.
Some days. But, do you have anything else you want to say in regards to this?
No, I'm getting to the point where I'm incredibly angry just about this entire topic, and I want to stop talking about it before someone tries to misconstrue what we say.
Oh, too late. We've long said to the point of no return, my dude. But I can't wait to see what shit this starts, if anything. But this has been Skull and L0tus. Y'all have a good morning, night, evening, day, or whatever the case may be, and we will see you all next time.